All right, so let's begin with our introduction to Ambrose Bierce. This is the author of An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and this is a picture of him. Ambrose Bierce was born in a rural area of Meigs County, Ohio in 1842. Although his family was poor, his father had an extensive library, and Ambrosia educated himself in this library, and he gained a great appreciation from for the written word. He left home in his early teens and decided to try to make his way in the big wide world. He lived on and off with relatives, and he did attempt a formal education. However, he did end up becoming a printer's apprentice in Indiana, and he did spend time in a military school in Kentucky, which led to him ultimately enlisting in the Union Army during the Civil War, which is incredibly interesting because he was in some fairly significant battles. These included Shiloh, Chickamauga, and Missionary Ridge. And these were local battles, but they were also some of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War. So Ambrose Bierce came back from the war a changed man. He was injured, and he was medically discharged on January 25th of 1865. And after the war, he stated, "When I ask myself what has become of Ambrose Bierce, the youth who fought at Chickamauga, I am bound to answer that he is dead." So the war affected him greatly. And we see that as a reflection in his work. A lot of his contemporaries called him Bitter Bierce. He's not a fan of a happy story. And also, another interesting element about Ambrose Bierce's writings, he tends to use this sort of hallucinatory kind of rhetoric with elements of the paranormal, and he does this to sort of really intensify human experience, the things that he experienced during the war, how he reacted to the trauma of living through this terrible time in our history. William Dean Howells, who was an advocate of realism, praised Bierce's writings, and which caused him to have further notoriety. And so it was really a good time for Ambrose to be recognized by Howell, because he was really leading the realism movement at the time. Bierce married. He had 3 children, but unfortunately his personal life was just as tragic as his military life. One of his sons was fatally shot in a bar fight over a woman. The other son died from pneumonia, but it was basically caused by his alcoholism. And Bierce himself and his wife Molly separated in 1888 and did divorce 5 years later. After a number of personal losses, the loss of his children, the divorce, Bierce decided to travel to Mexico. During this time, it was a rather tumultuous time in Mexico's history, and at the age of 71, it is supposed that Bierce planned to take part in the Mexican Revolution on the side of Pancho Villa, a cause endorsed by some politically engaged Americans of the era, but not the U.S. government. So Bierce decided to go rogue. However, after the age of 71, Ambrose Bierce completely disappears. Nobody is sure what happened to him. A body was never found, and he is currently listed on Time magazine's top 10 most famous disappearances. Ambrose Bierce was known to be suicidal, so some people have speculated that perhaps he committed suicide, but his last known correspondence was to his cousin Laura, and he writes, "Goodbye. If you hear of my being stood up against a Mexican stone wall and shot to rags, please know that I think that a pretty good way to depart this life. It beats old age, disease, or falling down the cellar stairs. To be a gringo in Mexico, that is euthanasia. And that was, of course, Mr. Ambrose Bierce. Some believe that he was killed in 1914, and some believe that he just simply disappeared into Mexico and lived as a recluse the rest of his life, but we may never know. So, luckily for us, his stories are just as exciting and mysterious as his life. So, we are going to read An Occurrence at Owl Creek, and I hope you guys enjoy it.